I'm not really sure exactly the best answer to give you because I can't say for sure whether there will be retroactive replacement. I can't guarantee that. So I would make your own decision knowing that. No, you won't see any real work being done on Mastery until all the classes are in and their kits are finished. Luark, I don't expect Mastery to be a system that allows classes to like live outside of their role. So no, I would not expect Mastery. You should not expect Mastery to allow a Paladin, for example, to be a competent healer or like a primary healer kind of thing. No. Will the Mastery system possibly address some of the issues classes have, like low DPS, help with soloing, and would it allow for classes to fill roles that are not their main roles? Like, could a Paladin use Mastery to be a DPS or healer? Mastery will not allow classes to shift out of their role. You won't be able to use Mastery to, like, turn a Paladin into a Cleric or, like, a Paladin into a main healer or anything like that. Mastery, for abilities, Mastery will be a combination of, like, incremental improvements or empowerments to certain abilities, mixed with a final point decision where you will choose between one of two endpoints. Can we have Mastery reset in towns only? I mean, I don't think that's far-fetched. I definitely want there to be a way to respec your Mastery points, but I don't want it to necessarily be easy to do. Are group buffs going to make their way to the priest classes? Yes. Yes. Druid, I've set up Druid buffs where the ones that are level 30 and above are group oriented. And so far as I'm going back through the Shaman right now, I'm adjusting those to be the same way. And that'll be the case, you know, for the Cleric and for other classes as well that have group buffs that are appropriately, you know, group oriented. All the classes will be getting more abilities, right? Or will they be kind of spread out the abilities more? It'll be a combination of both. It's weighted more towards there just needing to be more abilities. There's a lot of class ability lines that don't receive upgrades right now and will continue now, you know, to receive upgrades up through the current level of 40. And then there will be some net new abilities that we add that just haven't been implemented yet. And then there will be some potentially, there's not any that I would point to right now and say this one for sure is going to be tweaked, but potentially some changes in when abilities come in, like when you actually can get them and learn them, to kind of spread that out a little bit more. One of my main purposes as I'm going through this is to try and keep that carrot strong, you know, all the way up into where it currently caps out at 40, to make sure that there are things that are desirable and exciting and meaningful all the way up. That's the goal. My focus has been primarily on Druid, so that, you know, it's not necessarily going to be a ton of updates for classes and whatnot coming into the next patch, but just know that it's, you know, going to be ramping up quite a bit, so expect more of that to come. The eventuality is you will not be able to stay invisible while you loot. You shouldn't be able to do it with a corpse. You shouldn't be able to do it with chests. So that's something we need to fix. In general, there's a lot of changes coming to, like, the economy side of things. How things are priced, their sell points, like all that kind of stuff. We will have buyback for merchants eventually. We also plan to have dumpster diving. And so when you go to any vendor, you could potentially, you know, see the items that other players have sold over time to that vendor and can purchase them from that vendor. Is there a way to shut off the information box that pops up when I highlight my spells and skills? That is on the list of, like, improvements that we want to make to the UI, where we can give you guys the ability to say, hey, I want to see tooltips, I don't want to see tooltips, like the little pop-up tooltips on your mouse. It's like personally for me, it kind of bugs me too. So I feel the desire for that. I feel it. Just as a general kind of disclaimer when it comes to UI stuff, the goal is absolutely to give you guys as much freedom as possible. Is there any desire to incentivize warriors to use shields? Yes. Yes. In fact, when I do that next pass on the warrior, it's going to be part of the focus on that is going to be incorporating shields more into their offensive kit and giving them just some more things that they can do with the shield in mind. My goal was to make them a shield-oriented battlefield commander type tank, and to give them a lot of interesting utility with the shield. Because again, the goal is to like not only incentivize but to reward warriors for shield use. There's a lot that I really want shields to be awesome. Have there been any changes, or are there any plans on doing something related to tanks and their readiness regeneration or readiness generation in relation to dodges, parries, things like that? So people would be up and fighting Gadai at the fort, and they would pull like a boar or a bat or something, and it would just beat on the paladin and give them lots of opportunities to block and parry and do those various things to generate wrath. And it became like a huge part of why wrath building was so broken and why we had to ultimately change that. We're more in a situation right now where we're trying to just like rethink foundationally if and how we want those things to factor into readiness regeneration instead of just being mitigation oriented only. What's the plan to replace warrior resilience? It is a deprecated mechanic. There's not really a plan to replace it because we're not planning to use it anymore. How come the speed buff on Druid is called Spirit of the Wolf and not Imbue trait Speed of the Black Wolf? Well, there's two reasons. One, I'm just going to say I like nodding to EQ where we can. And then the more gameplay oriented reason was just deciding to have Spirit of Wolf scale up with level and be more of a level kind of based effect instead of having all of these incremental upgrades. First little bit of some Shaman edition. So we've got Grip of the Crags, Grip of the Titans. We've got some upgraded the Fang line now. So the Fang line goes up to 40. I want to get the Beginner's Hunch line updated. We need to do the pet. Just to set the stage for you Shaman, I am in the process of making these upgrades, especially to the grip line. I'm removing, maybe temporarily, the Constitution contribution. In order to have more, again, as a baseline, more of like a steady managed upgrade so things don't get out of hand. You know, it's going to make some of you sad, I get it, but it is temporary for now. The plan would be, because a Shaman with that that Constitution contribution was able in the teens, to start buffing strength and stamina up to like +8, +9, +10, in some cases, which is just a massive amount of stats at that level. So instead, what we're doing is we're having more of an incremental upgrade where, the first buff is +2/+2, the upgrades +4/+4, +6, +8, all the way up. And so I want to see how that feels before we throw that stat contribution back in there. Yeah, the Constitution will have a diminished contribution for a period of time. And it's the exact same approach that we're taking with Mastery in a way. It's getting the baseline dialed in, and then because the goal is not for Constitution to feel mandatory for your buff to matter. The buff should matter and be meaningful and desirable in its base form. Constitution's there if you decide, hey, I want to really ramp this thing up and really focus on making this as potent as it can be. Then you can, focus Constitution and try to really drive that up as far as you can. The question essentially is, are we going to have snapshotting or not? Meaning, in the case of the Shaman, if you have a buff like the grip line that improves with higher Constitution, is it going to be where you put all the Constitution gear on, you buff everybody, then you take it off and switch to something else because it snapshots that bonus? Or is it going to be dynamic and more reflected in real time, meaning that if you want that bonus, you have to actually kind of live in that loadout to get the bonus and maintain it? And I would say that that's still a TBD. It's still a TBD for us. The plan is for Shaman to get an upgraded pet every 5 levels right now. The other thing too is that the Shaman pets do eventually get dual wield. Once they get the level 20 pet, gets dual wield. I did also add a new resistance debuff for enchanters. So now with the changes, Forceful Will reduce all resistances by 15, Commanding by 20, and Dominating by 25. And Dominating Will comes online now at level 24. So by level 24, you'll have that 25%, or that reduction of resistance by 25 flat. But that should be a big deal for enchanters, and I want to obviously continue that lineup where they'll have at least one more upgrade up to 40 of that line, and they will be on top. In terms of other classes that can reduce resistance, they'll be on top. What I can say about the Bard is that our audio team is working really hard to conceptualize on their end from an audio perspective how we want to handle the Bard and the different instrumentation and when different bar. I mean, guys, it's deep. Like, it's deep. We're talking like down to the level of what do you get when you have 2 bards in the same group playing together? How does the music work? Like, how does it blend and gel, and really getting a sense of like dirge type sorrowful music versus bombastic, like loud, brass triumphant music versus like ballad and things like that. And then also trying to put things in place to support like more social aspects of bard play, where you can have multiple players come together to play songs for entertainment and things like that. Like, there's just a lot of depth going into how it all can work. And that's what happens when you have an audio team that's like super passionate about this kind of game, about the bard specifically, and wanting to really leave a mark on the genre with a bard class that's kind of, I don't know, kind of unhinged in a way. It's going to be really cool. At what point will rogues be looked at? The damage is terrible, even with Aganox's Fang. You also have a Necro Pet that can backstab for close to the same damage with a lower cooldown. Yeah. At what point will rogues' damage be looked at? Here's the thing. A lot of the responses I give to these kinds of questions probably sound like I'm validating the fact that something's wrong. And I'm not always trying to validate that something is definitely wrong. Because, for example, one of the things Mark sent me yesterday was a graph breakdown. Let me just see how he... So it's a graph breakdown of parses from over 500,000 group fights in the 35 to 40 bracket from some of our internal testers. And granted, it's only from a couple of groups, so it's not like we're looking at this as like this is the final word and the ultimate say on everything, but it is data. And over 500k group fights, the breakdown right now is like, it looks really good. In terms of where, you know, particularly in terms of where the DPS classes are landing. Now, Summoner is a little bit high, especially given, you know, some of the simplicity of their approach with like some of the current mechanics. Dire Lord is also a little bit high in some cases, but it's looking pretty good. Now, that being said, I guess it's not the final word. It's just data as of right now that is useful to us. It's showing us that as things are trending, there's not these wild, massive like drop-offs. You know, where this class is like way lower than this class or anything like that. Will Pantheon be making Necro Pet mechanics their own, or should we just expect the mechanic from EQ? I don't envision the Pantheon Necromancer to be as heavily of a pet-oriented class as the Summoner. One of the things that's kind of skewing it a little bit right now is the idea that right now Necromancer pets are kind of off the rails a little bit because you can equip them with very powerful rare items. You can give them armor, that kind of stuff. Originally, the intention was that you could only equip them with weapons, and that unlike the Summoner pet, when the Necromancer pet died, they would lose whatever gear they had equipped. Now, that being said, we've got two options. We either go back to the original design, where they lose equipment when they die, and you can't equip them with armor. Or we kind of allow what has just happened to kind of take place, but we put constraints in. To go back to the original question, what's the vision for their pets? The vision is, I really want to embrace the idea of them growing into archetypical pets, maybe even earlier than they do currently, where you end up having like a rogue pet, a warrior pet, and a caster pet for the Necromancer. And they just have a little bit more of an ability range to them. Because I want there to be some interaction with pets for Necros. I don't want it to just be like an AFK auto attack pet. I want them to have a few abilities, but just scaled to where they're not accounting for more DPS than they should. And then yeah, we need to figure out which one of those constraint approaches we're going to do to balance them out. I would love to dig in with you guys into some of what Ronick has been working on, but I dare not. But a simple right click on this NPC would reveal some things that are very exciting. But that is for you, not me.